Hello everyone, welcome to today's new chapter. Today we'll take a look in the chapter 5, Importance of the Pawn Structure. Again, today we'll take a look in the game between Asmir-Parashvili Zurab and Carlsen Magnus. And let's take a look in the game. In this position here, black is on the move. So here, black needs to make a decision what type of the endgame he wants to play. So here, first of all, please stop the video and try to find the best move for black in this position. Thank you so much. Here, there are a couple of ways how black or Magnus Carlsen can continue this position. One of the normal ways here is to play, let's say, move c4 to be active on the bishop. When the bishop goes, let's say, to f1, then we can play a move like rook f8, attacking the f2 pawn. And after the move f3, with the move b5, I will say that this position is unclear. This knight is good, and probably the king will enter the game pretty quickly. But what happened in the game? Here, the black actually played the move rook to e8, offered the trade of the rooks pretty quickly, and that was not the right trade in this moment. Why? Here, white was pretty happy to take this rook immediately, so rook e8, and after the move knight d8, the problem is king to c3. Now, we're talking about the pawn structure in this game, so let's take a look in these three pawns. The main problem is that white king is very close to the c pawn, so after the move king c4, the c5 pawn is going down. But the problem, there is also the one idea. I think probably most of my students will say, okay, yeah, but black can play a move b5 here. But the problem is that after the move b5, white has this beautiful idea b4. Now the problem is obviously if black takes cb king b, white king from b will already go to a5, and this a6 pawn will go down. But after the move c4, interesting moment. So here again, second time, please stop the video and try to find the best way how white can play for the win this position. Thank you so much. Here, after the c4, the best move for white is actually to take this back. So bishop c4, and after the bc king c4, it looks a bit strange because white is without the knight, but white pawns are very, very strong, and the problem is that after the king to b6, the a pawn is going down. These two pawns are going very quickly to become a queen, and also white on the other side have 3 against 2. So let's go back and let's go for this critical moment. So after the move king c3, black played the move knight to c7, okay, so activating the knight. And after the move king to c4, black played the move b6. This was kind of like probably here black idea was to make some kind of a fortress so white king can come closer together with the knight, so white king can go to d5 and so on. But here white had found a very nice way how to destroy these pawns on the queen side. Here white decided to play a move a4, saying, okay, I want to push a5 and then I want to attack your c5 pawn. After the move a4, there is nothing else for black to do except to push a5 in this position, but that's already a good thing for white, especially because now the b5 and d5 squares are possible target for this white king. After this, now the time is come for white to play on the king side. So that means on this side of the board, white has a majority of the pawns, 3 against 2, and that means only 1. So white must push these pawns as far as possible. So white here played the move f4, nothing else for black to do except to go back, king g7, and white played the move g4, pushing forward, king f6, h4. Now black played the move h6, and here white can play a move g5 here, but as well, I suppose that in this position both players were in some kind of a time trouble, so white decided here not to push yet. He decided a little bit to dance with the bishop, so bishop to e4, I like to call it, king g7, bishop t6, a little bit repeating the moves, probably trying to get to the move 40 as soon as possible. Bishop e4, king f6, and after bishop t6, king e6, white first decided a little bit to improve the position of white king, king to d3, king e7, king e3, king e6, bishop e4, king f6. And now finally we are getting to the critical moment when white will push g5 pawn forward. Now, why the move g5 is so important? First of all, obviously, we have 3 against the 2, but after the move g5, the pawn on g6 is starting to be weak because this g6 pawn is in a light square. In the meantime, the knight on c7 is a bit passive here, and the only thing that what knight on c7 can do is just stopping white king from going to this b5 and d5 square. So after the move g5, black tried to go back, king to g7. Yes, black can take this pawn, but after the fg, now again, the problem is that white opened another route for the king, so that's a king, let's say, from f4 to e5, because this black king must go back to defend the g pawn. So these are a couple of problems, and one of the reasons why black didn't take the g pawn immediately. So here, black played the move king to g7, and white said, okay, bishop to d3. White opened a second route for the king, and that route is a king e4, king e5, and go forward. Black knight suddenly went forward, so knight e5, check, knight to b4, and very nice move for the bishop. There are a couple of different ways where the bishop can go, but here white put the bishop on b1. The main reason why the bishop is on b1 is that after the move king e5 or king d6, black king from g7 can't go anywhere because the bishop from b1 will still attack the g6 pawn. So here black decided to take hg, h takes g, or also fg was possible. So here that's just a matter of taste. How will you take the pawn? Here white took with the h, king f8, king e5, king f7. And now very important in this type of the endgames when you play bishop against the knight is always to control the black knight. And white here played a very nice move, bishop to e4, saying your knight can go back and your knight also can't go forward. Also very important to take a look is the pawn structure, because we're doing this in this chapter, we're doing that subject in this chapter. Here white 2 pawns are controlling 3 pawns of black on the queen side, and also white 2 pawns on the king side are just in a lovely position, especially because the g6 pawn of black is an easy target. Here black play king g7, and final route for the king is to go king to d6 and to go to the square c7 and b6. Black tried to find some kind of a counterplay with the c4, but now king to c7. Knight to d3, take the pawn, take the pawn, take another one, and after c3, now just here still we need to control the knight, so we don't want to get some surprise with the knight to c4. Here first white play king to b5, knight to d1, push, and the problem for black is that black can't stop the a pawn from promotion. So after the move c2, white just simply took, and after knight c2, a7, black is not on time to get the pawn. Thank you so much. Let's go for the quick recap. I hope you enjoyed this example. So in this position, definitely the first big mistake by black here is playing the move rook to e8. Here in this position, black should play something like rook f8 or the c4, just avoiding the trade of the rooks. Here Magnus played the move rook to e8. Asman Parashvili was, I think, pretty happy here to trade the rooks immediately, so he took rook to e8, and after knight e8, king to c3. So now the problem for black is that black can't control the queen side in a good way because the white king is a very, very close, and also the bishop is a perfect support for the white king. So here, after the move like knight to c7, white just played king to c4, b6, and in my opinion now it looks like a little fortress on the queen side, but white now played the move a4, saying I want to push a pawn even further. So white wants to push a5 and to make a mess. So here black first played a5 to block, and now f4. After the f4, now it's a time for white to open the story on the king side as well. So after king g7, g4, nothing else for black than to activate the king, but now the pawns are just going forward. Also very important this type of endgames is always to keep the bishop in a good square. Here white did this pretty good, so bishop e4, very nice active move, and now I like to say this is a bit of dancing with the white pieces. And suddenly, when we get to the critical moment, that's it. White played the move g5. Suddenly, these 3 pawns are going forward, making the very nice weakness of the g6 pawn of black. Nothing else here for black to do except to go back. Bishop to d3, opening the second rook for the king. So king wants to go forward. King e4, king e5. Check. King e4, knight b4, and now very nice again, move bishop to b1, saying, yes, I want to support my king in the way that black king can't go toward the white king. So here, after one trade, king e5, and now bishop to e4. Again, it's very important for white to control the knight on the b4. Couple of moves, and after a couple of trades, king to b5. Now black can't stop the white pawn on a5. This white pawn will just go forward pretty quickly. Thank you so much again. I hope you enjoyed in this chapter. I hope you enjoyed. So here it's very important to understand is when you have a pawns on the side, let's say, for example, here on the king side, white had a very nice majority. Two, let's say here it was a 3 against the 2. Why just push the pawns, control the space in a very nice way. As well, the bishop was supporting the white king all along against the knight, because this position is a kind of the open one. There is no good square for the knight. So here, very nice play. I will say that black made a mistake from the game, let's say from the move 1, when he traded the rooks. With the rooks on the board, black can play this. I think it's a pretty equal position, but without the rooks, a white king and the bishop together with these pawns, this is kind of like an unstoppable force that black couldn't handle in this position. As I said, thank you so much for your time, and I hope to see you in the next example. Bye. Hello everyone, welcome to chapter 5, Importance of the Pawn Structure. Today we'll take a look in the game between Aingorn Verislav and Agrest Evgeny. I hope you will enjoy this example, and let's take a look in the game. White is on the move in this position, and here white needs to make a choice. To trade the queens or to keep the queens with some other, let's say with some another plan. So here, please stop the video and try to find the best move for white. Thank you so much for your time. In this position, I will say the crucial move is to take queen to a6. First of all, I will say that queen b3 move is not a mistake here. Just, I think with the queen b3, it's still not so clear what white should do, because as you can see here, white king can't go to castle because the queen from a6 is attacking the f1 square. So this queen b3 plan, it's a bit sharper. Queen a6 move is a very important, I will say here. Why? After the knight a6, white will play a next move that's a very nice one, and that's a move h6. Today we are talking about the pawn structure, and you will see that with the pawn on h6 here, this bishop on g7 will be in danger. After the move bishop h8, let's say now it's very important to think, okay, how black will develop that bishop from h8? The only way for black to make, let's say some kind of activity with this bishop from h8 is to push a pawn forward with the plan of f6. So, of course, white saw that, and here in this position, white played the move knight to h2. With the plan knight h2, why this move is so good? First of all, after the move f6 that happened in the game, white has just a brilliant move f4. And now white has this beautiful center, d4, e5, f4, and these 3 pawns together are making some kind of like a fortress in the center, and the bishop on h8 will be for forever on such a square as it h8 square. So this bishop on h8 will be kind of like a very passive and a very bad piece. What happened in the game? Black played fe, and now it's very important for white to play fe. Why not de? The point is not de, because if white takes like this knight will have a square c5 to jump. So it's very important when you take with the right pawn is that also this d4 pawn is protecting the c5 square. So here white first of all take with the f pawn. So fe5, and now black played the move knight e7. Finally, idea of black is to put this knight at least to go to e6, preventing the e pawn from pushing forward. Now it's a time for white just to play a regular natural move. The first natural move for white is to play bishop to e3, developing the bishop. After the bishop e3, Black started a bit more aggressive, knight to b5, trying to play a move knight to c3. White saw that and white said, okay, I will definitely not go to castle. Let me play a move king to d2, with the idea is preventing this knight from jumping to the c3 square. Black played the move rook c8, and now white said, okay, let's see what you got. And white played the move a4. Black knight, let's say, pretty logically jumped to c3, and now rook to h2 c1. This is the white idea. White saw that this knight will jump to e4, but after knight e4, white played the move king d3. White was ready to let this knight to jump here, but the point is, white is playing this position in the way that white is a piece up. Why? This bishop is on h8. So white plan here is to trade the rooks over the c file and to control the knight on the e4. Yes, the black knight is in a very good square, but there is nothing he can do right now. Black played the move king to f7, and now suddenly white wanted to, and white played actually a pretty strong move. The move is, yes, there is a knight on e4, let's remove that knight. And white played the move knight to f3, with a plan of knight to g5 check, brilliantly moving the knight, leaving just the bishop on e3 to fight against the bishop on h8. Black played king e6, and now let's go knight g5 check. After the check, bishop to g5. Now black played king f5. As you can see here, yes, we have two rooks from the black side and two rooks from the white side, but the point is this is kind of like playing with the bishop up for white, because still the bishop is on h8, not doing anything. White played the move now bishop to e7, trying to attack the rook on f8 to keep fighting for the c file. Rook e8, and now white said, okay, let's release the tension. Trade the rook c8, and now rook to f1 check. White is trying to get control over the f file. King to e6, and now white played a beautiful move, bishop to d6. You will see that over the next couple of moves, black will lose almost all possible ideas, and black will lose all possible squares for his pieces. Black played the move a6, and now white played the move g4. Very nice move g4, saying is, with the move g4, white wants to control the square f5 with the g4 pawn. Black played g5. As you can see here, there is no good move for the bishop. Also, this rook can't go anywhere, let's say on c4, because if black rook goes to c4, white will just simply play rook f8, and the bishop on the h8 is lost. So here, black played the g5, but the point is that white suddenly got the square, and that square is a square f5 for the white rook. White played move rook g8, and black played rook g8 to defend. And like I said here, over the time, black will lose his move. So here, white first played the move bishop to a3, waiting move. So let's take a look what black can actually do here. Bishop moves are not possible. Rook moves, let's say rook g6, is kind of like possible, but you will see what will happen next. But the point is that rook can't go anywhere on the 8 because the g5 pawn will also be lost. So here, very difficult position for black. Black almost lost all the moves, and now the move is rook to g6. I will say there is a little trick here by black. So here, please stop the video and try to find the best move for white in this position. Thank you so much for your time. In this position, the crucial thing for white is actually to play a move bishop to f8. Why this move is so important? If white suddenly goes for rook f8, white has a beautiful trick that's a rook to h6. And yeah, still white can have some, let's say, winning chances, but rook h8 here is not a good move because white has rook to h3, taking the bishop on a3. But let's say after the move rook h6, still white has a move rook bishop to c1. Yes, the position is still winning for white, but this is kind of like a more complicated than it should be. So here, after the move rook to g6, white saw this trick with the h6 pawn, and white played just simply bishop to f8, saying, I want to keep the h6 pawn here, and I want to still keep fighting against the bishop on h8. Here, nothing else for black to do except to go back with the rook, but now bishop b4, a5, bishop d6. Again, interesting moment. Now, after the rook g6 move, the rook g6 is not possible anymore because white can just go to f8, grabbing the bishop. There is no more this trick with rook h6 or rook h3. So black is completely lost. Black decided to move the rook. As you can see, this is a Zugzwang. Why? Black king can't go to d7 because white will simply play rook f7 and rook h7. Black can move the bishop in any square with the rook. Let's say white will just grab the g5 pawn, and that's what happened. So here black played rook c8, rook g5, and now a little trick by black, bishop to f6. They tried at least to sacrifice the bishop to get another one, but the problem is that white will get a winning rook endgame, and that's what happened. White took, and rook to e5, cutting the black king from coming back to the e file. Here, black tried at least to push, but after ab, a4, f7, rook f8, rook to f5, black resigned because black can't control both of these pawns, and this a pawn is just an easy weakness that white will grab in a couple of moves. I hope you really enjoyed this example. Let's take a look for a quick recap as we usually do. I will say that's a very important thing for white here is to make this first trade, so to play a move queen to a6. With that plan, like I said, this chapter is about the importance of the pawn structure. This h6 move is just beautiful because white with his pawns are just fighting against the bishop on the g7. So after bishop h8, white played this beautiful move knight h2, saying, I know you want to play f6, I will just play f4 and lock your bishop completely. So after the f6, white just played f4, and now a couple of logical moves. Knight to t7, black is trying to activate his bishop, but now white said, okay, this is the end game, so I can also play move king d2 to activate my king. So after the king d2, black play rook a c8, a4. So white is here ready to let this knight to come to e4, but on that square, the black knight will be kind of like no danger at all for the white position. So white simply play rook hc1, knight e4, king d3, and after king f7, white said, okay, you have a strong knight on e4, let's trade that. Let's just leave the bishop on e3, that's doing a lot, against the bishop on h8, that is not doing anything. So after knight f3, second very important trade from the white side, knight to g5, trading the bishops, king f5, and now white said, okay, let's use that bishop that's on g5, white played bishop to e7, activating his pieces, and after rook e8, trade, check. White is fighting for the f file, king e6, and bishop to d6. As you can see here, the problem for black is that black is playing without the bishop completely. a6, g4, getting the square, let's say taking control over the square f5, and after g5, rook f5, the point is there is a new weakness in the black position, and that's this g pawn. Black play rook g8, and now these kind of like awaiting moves, bishop a3, and after the move rook g6, it's very important if you have white pieces in this type of position to understand what's the black chance for counterplay. The only chance for black to get any kind of counterplay is to take rook h6 and to give a rook h3 check to get the bishop on a3. So it's pretty important to see that and to play bishop f8, not giving anything to black. So after the rook g8, bishop b8, and after a5, again, bishop to d6. This is a Zugzwang because there is no good move for black. Any move, black is losing some kind of material, and that's what happens. So black play rook c8, and after rook g5, bishop f6. He took the bishop. That's kind of like the only thing. This is maybe the only move that black bishop played for the whole time. And after ef, king d6, rook e5, here in a couple of moves, black resigned because black can't control so many of white pawns. And the problem is that this rook will go from behind and the rook will control all of these pawns. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed this example, and I hope you will use this kind of a knowledge to always, when you make a good trade, also take a look is, can you control the pieces of your opponent, especially with the pawns in this exact position. This beautiful pawn fortress in the center just make it this bishop on g7 useless for the most of this game. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next chapter. Bye. Hello everyone, welcome to chapter 5, Importance of the Pawn Structure. Today we'll take a look in the game between Sashikiraan Krishan and Pelletier Yannick. I hope you will enjoy the game. Let's take a look in the position on the board. So white is on the move, but let's see what do we have on the position on the board. First thing first, white has like a very nice bishop pair in this position. And when that's the case, white wants to open position as much as possible. Also, there is a d pawn, but this d pawn is isolated pawn. There is no help from the other pawns here. But the point is that this d pawn can be very easily pushed forward. So that's not a real weakness in this position. So please stop the video here and try to find the best move for white in this position. Thank you so much for your time. Here, the crucial move for white is to push a pawn forward, and the critical move is a6. Why the move a6 is so important? First of all, in the starting position, this pawn was already attacked by the bishop and the rook on h5. Here, the best thing for white is definitely to push the pawn forward, but also what's very important is that after the move a6, the pawn on a7 is the weakness now in the black position. Now, white just need to find a way how to get to the a7 pawn of black. After the move a6, black decided to play a move knight to b6, trying at least to control the d5 square as best as possible. So here, first move from white is to play bishop to d3. Very slow, but kind of a very powerful move. Idea of white is to move this rook back. Black played the move rook to c7, trying to go back, and now, obviously, when you have a way to control the c-file, always try to do it. And here, white played the move rook from h to c1, white is trying to fight for the c-file. Here, black played the move king to d7, trying to activate the king, and in the same time trying to defend the rook on c7 in the best possible way. This is the situation number 2. I will say that's very important. So here, please stop the video here and try to find the best move for white, how white should proceed this position if white is fighting for advantage. Thank you so much for your time. Here, white must play a move d5. Beautiful move. What's the problem now with the move d5? When I say a problem, I mean what's a problem for black? The problem is, however black takes this pawn on d5, somehow this a pawn of white will get promoted. So let me try to explain like a basic line. If white tries to, let's say black tries to get this pawn with the pawn, well, white idea here is first to take the bishop, and if he takes it, white just want to take first the rook, and after king d7, after a7, this white pawn is getting promoted. The problem is definitely there, and there is no good way how black can solve it. After the move d5, the only way for black not to lose this game is to play a move knight to d5. Now, after the move knight d5, white idea is obviously to first trade the rooks, because after the trade of the rooks, the last defender of a7 square is finally, let's say, traded. That's this rook on c7, so he's gone. And after rook c7, knight e7, and now white played simply bishop to a7. From here, white plan is pretty simple. White just wants to move the bishop and push the pawn toward the queen. Here, black, let's say, has like impossible task to try to stop the a pawn, but here black tried to trade the rooks. And after the rook a5, black idea was at least to destroy the a rook, who is coming behind the a pawn. The problem is that even without the rooks, bishop pair is like a huge force in this endgame. After the rook a5, white traded, the rook a5, bishop a5 again, bishop to d4. White idea is to simply push the a pawn, and at the same time, why not, to grab some of the pawns of black on the king side. Black played the move f6, and now white said, okay, let's push further. So a5, black played e5, bishop e3. Black decided at least to try to defend some pawns on the king side, so black played f5. And now, like I said in the start of this game, here also there are like let's say there were like a couple of pawn weaknesses in the black position, and one of them is definitely the b3 pawn. So here white played the move bishop c4, saying the bishop b3 is the next move of white. Black played the move king c6, and after the bishop to b3,
Black decided to play bishop b6. Idea of black is at least to try to trade this dark square bishops and to try to grab the a pawn. But now this is again a critical moment in this endgame and trying to find the best way for white, how white is playing this position for the win. Thank you so much for your time. Here, the crucial move for white is to play simply bishop to d5 check. Again, the problem for black is there is no good way how to take this bishop. Why? How to, let's say, take away the bishop on d5. The problem is, if this knight takes the bishop, white idea is simply to promote the queen. If what happened in the game is, obviously, if this king moves to d6, white will again promote the queen, because now, if knight takes, the bishop is just there to help him. So, there is nothing else to do here except taking d5, but now white took bishop to b6. After that, black played knight e8, and now beautiful move by white is bishop to d8. As you can see here, knight on a8 is in a kind of like in a cage. There is a no free square for the knight. White tried with the king c4 at least to try to get some pawns, but now white played bishop e7, and after king b3, bishop f8. Here black resigned because the white idea is simply to grab one pawn, to attack another one, and to activate the king and to grab the rest of the black pawns. In the meantime, black knight can't do anything because he needs to take a look on the a7 pawn. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed in this example. Let's go back. Here, definitely the first important moment, and it's very important for white here, first to push a6 to protect the a pawn, and at the same time to put a pressure on the a7 pawn of black. Black tried with knight b6 at least to try to hide this weakness on a7, but now first white played bishop d3, one waiting move to move the rook back. After rook d7, now white said, okay, now black rook is unprotected, so after the rook c1, the white idea is to keep trading the rooks. Nothing else for black except to go king to d7, and now beautiful moment d5. White idea is to open this dark square diagonal g1, a7, and to take this knight on b6, because when this knight disappears, suddenly the white pawn on white a pawn will become a huge force on the a file. So after the d5, black took knight to d5, rook d7, king knight c7, and now bishop to a7. The problem for black is there is no good defense of this a pawn push. So black tried to trade the rooks, but after the rook a5, bishop a5, white simply played the move bishop d4, saying, I will push my a pawn as far as possible, but in the meantime, I will keep an eye on the, let's say, on the king side pawns of black. So after the f6, white played a7, e5, one back move, f5, but now white is preparing to get the b3 pawn as well, so white played move bishop to c4, and after king d5, trade, bishop b6, and again, beautiful tactic, bishop to d5. The problem for black is black can't take the bishop on any way because the white pawn will be promoted. Black took with the king, but now after the bishop b6, knight a8, bishop just went to d8, and in a couple moves here, white just easily won the game because white bishop just get to one of these black pawns, and the white king went to take this pawns on the king side. Thanks so much for your time. I hope you enjoyed this example. As you can see here, especially when you have a bishop pair, it's a pretty easy to push, let's say, the pawns. If you have a pass pawn, like in this game, here was very easy to help to a pawn to become a queen when you have a nice bishop pair and the position is open as is it here. So when you have a pass pawn and, let's say, a nice bishop pair, always the good thing is to push this pawn as much as possible. Thank you so much for your time, and again, hope to see you in the next chapter. Bye! Hello everyone, welcome to chapter 5, Importance of a Pawn Structure. Today we'll take a look in the game between Tragubov Pavel and Kasimdzhanov Rustam. Kasimdzhanov had the black pieces in this game. After the move bishop g5, as we can see here, now the black queen is under attack. It's a main question what to do with the queen. And now I will say the best possible square for the queen is to play a move queen to d7. Go one square forward. Why? Because if black tries to defend the queen with the bishop e7, then the problem is that at some point bishop can take a d5 knight, and black will not be ready for the, let's say, all the things that will happen, especially if they open the E or to open potentially a D file. So here, white played the move queen d7, saying is, I want to control the C file with my rooks, and also the black queen here is pretty good defending the D5 knight. White here played the move rook to c1. And in my opinion, that this was a start of the wrong plan, because from here, white will get a beautiful bishop endgame where the all pawns of black you will see will be on the light squares completely fighting, let's say, against the bishop on g5. So let's take a look what happened next. Black played the move a4. With this move, black is saying, okay, let's see what will you do with the bishop. Do you want to make a traded bishop for the knight, or you want to go back with the bishop? Either way, if this bishop goes back, this knight will be just beautiful. So after the bishop to d5, black first took the rook c1, bishop c1, and obviously black took queen to d5. I will say that this is a double attack. Why? With the move queen to d5, black is also attacking the a2 pawn of white, so there is nothing else for white to do except to trade the queens. So after the queen d, ed, in this position, like I said before, this is a small edge for black because of this beautiful pawn structure. This bishop on c1, white bishop on c1 can't attack any of these crucial black pawns, and that's a pretty good thing here. Now white played, I will say, the crucial mistake in this endgame, and that's a move b3. So this is now an important moment. Take a look in this position and try to find the right way. How will you play this position as black for the win? And remember, the name of this chapter is Importance of the Pawn Structure. Thank you so much for your time. Here, the crucial move for black is to play a move h5. Why h5? Again, black is, first of all, it's affixing the white pawns in this h4, g3, f2 squares. And also with the move h5, black is preparing his own king to enter the game. So after the h5, here, white played the move king to g2, black played the move king to h7, activating the king to f3, black played king to g6. First of all, white played bishop f4, suddenly after king to f5, now the black king is just a beautiful place. If this black king enters the e4, black will be easily winning. So that's also the thing that white needs to think about. After the bishop to c7, now black is playing a bishop a3, preparing to attack a d4 pawn from the back. So white played bishop e5, trying to defend everything, and now crucial plan is f6. After the bishop c7, now we're getting to the second important moment in this endgame. Black played a very logical move that actually brings him a win, but on this move order, white had a chance how to make a draw. Here, let's stop the video and try to find the best move for black to play for the win this bishop endgame. Thank you so much for your time. In this position, the crucial move for black here, there are like two different ways, but the easiest way for black is to take a to b3. Why? After the a to b3, there is this very nice move, bishop to b2, attacking a d4 pawn. Here, after the bishop b6, black has now the move g5, and after trade, the problem for white is that after king e3, now black has check from behind, and obviously this king goes to d3, black can keep pushing the pawn forward. But if this king goes to f3, now black has a g4, and after king e2, king e4, black is winning. But let's take a look what happened in the game. Black first played g5, and in this case, white played very interesting move, bishop to d8, and after the trade bishop b2, in this position, white had only one move to make a, let's say, to make a good chances for a draw. This is very hard, but this was a chance for white. Here, white must play a move king to e3. Why? The problem for black is that now, because this bishop is on d8, not on b6, the bishop on d8 is attacking the f6 pawn. So now, after the check, king e2, black king is stuck for the so for the f5 square, he can't go forward, and if he takes f3, and now after king f5, this position is a draw, there is no entry square. So king e3 was just a beautiful resource by white, but here, that was the reason why in this position, instead of g5, it was very important for black first to take ab, and then to play bishop b2, because now, if he goes with the king to e3, this king can go forward. Just a beautiful, beautiful idea, just one very important moment. But what happened in the game is that after g5 bishop to d8, ab, bishop b2, white didn't see this idea with the king e3, white played bishop b6, and now we are entering in the same position where black played a beautiful game. Black just missed this one moment, and you can see how easily the game can go for a draw. So after the bishop b6 here, black played bishop c1, very important, cutting the king, so the king can't come to e3 anymore. So now bishop c5, g4, check. After the check, king goes there, and now after king e4, there is no f3 more. So after bishop e7, push, bishop f6, and now bishop b2, and after bishop d8, bishop d4, after a couple of moves, black just easily moved the bishop and pushed the pawn forward, so white resigned. Just a beautiful strategical game by black, and there was just a one chance for white to find a draw in this bishop endgame. So first of all, let's take a look for a quick recap, as we usually do. In this position, after bishop g5, black played a very nice move, queen d7, saying, I want to play a stable game, I want to defend the 9, and I want to help the rook for, let's say, black queen, want to help the rooks on the c file. So here, rook to c1, I will say that was the bad trade. I will say that here white probably should play a move like rook to e5, at least to try to keep the rooks on the board and try with the idea to at least to try to take the knight on d5. But after the rook c1, here black played a4, and very, let's say, with a couple of concrete moves, we will get this endgame with the queen to d5, queen d5, e5, that here black has a better chances because these pawns on white are just, let's say, on all the white pawns are on the dark squares. And now b3 was a mistake. One more time, one thing to say that here white also had a chance to play the endgame for a draw is to push the move h5. So this move was very important for white to play, because with this plan, suddenly black will not have this chance to activate the king. And with this move h5, I think there will be a pretty good chances for white to make a draw. But here, white missed that chance. White first played the move b3, and black was pretty happy to play a move h5 to activate the king from h7, g6, f5. So now we're going dancing with the kings. And after the move king f5, bishop t7, bishop a3, bishop e5, f6, bishop t7. Now this is kind of this important move order where black first should take on b3 and then play bishop b2. But here instead black played g5. And after this, bishop d8, takes bishop b2. White missed his only chance to play for a draw, to play with the king. Instead of that, first, white played the move bishop to b6, but because after the bishop c1, now it's a pretty easy for black to push and to activate the king. So here, after bishop c5, g4 in the game, king e2, king e4, there is nothing else to do because a d pawn in this position is just going down. So bishop e7, f5, bishop f6, bishop b2, and after a couple of moments from here, just as you can see, white resigned. So I will say very complex endgame, especially we can say it looks pretty equal, but because of the pawn structure, as you can see, because all the white pawns are just on the squares of the dark square bishop of black, and all the black pawns were just opposite of the bishop. So it's a very nice and very easy endgame for black to pressure it, because it's a very easy for the black bishop to attack these pawns. As you can see here in this endgame, white had this one chance to activate first the king and not to defend with the bishop, but this is a very hard moment, and it's very hard to see these small moves. And also black played a very nice endgame, pushing until he won this game in a very nice way. I hope you enjoyed this example, and I hope you're enjoying this chapter as well. You can see how pawns are important in this kind of the endgames, and how the pawns, or let's say pawn structure, is important before you make a real trade, or before you make a trade. You need to think about how your pawns are, and what's your structure of your pawns, especially in the center, as you can see in this game. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope to see you in the next chapter. Bye.